When Identity Crisis was released by DC Comics in the early 2000s, it was an attempt by the comic publisher to bring back the multiverse, which was erased from continuity, in the now iconic and equally controversial Crisis on Infinite Earths from 1985 and 1986. Originally, writers and publishers at DC believed that a single Earth would and could provide decades of story for writers within the company, but this didn't happen. And Identity Crisis was one of the first examples conceived of in part to bring back the multiverse for writers to once again use multiple Earths for DC comic characters once more. But the speculative scenario is this: that time when Sue Dibny was attacked by Dr. Light. Ralph Dibny was known as the Elongated Man and was often considered an underrated superhero in the DC universe. Created in 1960, the character was always considered a copy of the iconic Plastic Man character created in 1941. Ralph as a character was usually well written or as a solid supporting background-based character to more established heroes or heroines. As a result of this, Ralph as Elongated Man was known among DC comic readers as a hero in his own right, and not necessarily just another stretching or contracting hero in the shadow of Plastic Man. Sue Dibny was created in 1961 and was the wife of Ralph. Being an intelligent and intuitive woman, she worked for the Justice League as an administrator and a public face for the League. As a result of working with the Justice League, she met and befriended a lot of the heroes and heroines of the DC universe, and obtained a very good reputation as a trusted worker and a good friend to those affiliated with her. Identity Crisis was considered a murder mystery plot, which was something different for DC Comics at the time. But when it was revealed that Dr. Light had attacked Sue Dibny in the Watchtower, and the whole incident and later her death was what caused the entire crisis, with the whole storyline, when it was completed, there were pivotal reactions of disgust or even hate for the premise of the entire story. At the time, once that particular issue of Sue Dibny's attack was released, there were immediate reactions of surprise or anger and even shock that DC management would have even allowed such an event with their characters. From information now known, Brad Meltzer, the writer of the arc, intentionally used Ralph and Sue due to his assumption that they weren't exactly important characters to DC Comics, or that the related lore to the characters weren't necessarily respected or acknowledged by readers and critics. The exact opposite occurred, and the response from readers of the comics and those within the industry were quick and critical of DC as a result. Despite the universal sentiment regarding the event, DC continued it on how to connect to associated comics of the time. Readers were further critical of it, being referred to in other comics as the discussion had it being so distasteful to Dr. Light, Elongated Man, and Sue Dibny that the opinions or feelings with all of the characters changed instantly after the miniature series was published. Sentiment of the characters were so neutral that soon after Identity Crisis, the affected characters only made sporadic appearances in DC Comics for the rest of the 2000s and into the 2010s. Despite Brad Meltzer defending his work at the time, the event negatively affected public perceptions of him. Critics have mentioned that even though the event was arguably the worst written comic arc from DC out of any in the 2000s, the negative perception of Dr. Light had persisted despite readers wanting the event to never be affiliated with the character. Even the reputations of Elongated Man and Sue Dibny changed due to the events of the situation for them in 2000s DC Comics. Though the event was eventually reconned by DC, the distasteful circumstances of what happened to Sue Dibny is now considered one of the worst written moments in all of DC Comics history.